It's Mother's Day 2020, and it's a Mother's Day like we've never experienced before. But you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sheltering at home has really brought us all into focus on who we are as family and individuals, and just a lot of thoughts and things to think about. So as I was reflecting on Mother's Day, of course, my natural curiosity got the best of me, and I had to look up, how did Mother's Day even come to be? And I read that a woman by the name of Anna Jarvis felt like at the death of her mother in 1905, she really wanted to do something special to celebrate her life. She's a very impactful woman, not just in her own family unit, but in community as well. So she went to her church, St. Andrew's Church in West Virginia, and asked permission to do this special ceremony to honor her. Well, it took them a while to think about it, but they allowed her to do that. So by 1908, just a few years later, she found that this was so impactful, she was on a platform. She started a campaign to start a Mother's Day to honor all mothers. And Mother's Day to her was a very intimate time of celebration of that woman's life in her family unit, and it might have included community as well. So by the time she was on this platform and campaign, by 1911, she was in full-blown campaign to start this as a national holiday. By 1914, in all of her efforts through community and legislative platforms, Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at that time, signed a proclamation, and actually they got legislation in motion that it became a national holiday. Well, her true intent, however, was always for this to be an intimate time for that family to celebrate that woman's life and how it impacted their family and maybe some of the community. So it wasn't surprising by the early 1920s and the late teens that Hallmark got a hold of this holiday and they started commercializing it. Well, she was back on the campaign to make sure that that didn't happen. Well, unfortunately, it has happened. And that's how we know Mother's Day today. It is very commercial. There's cards and flowers and letters. It's one of the biggest money-making holidays that we have during the year, believe it or not. So fast forward to today and where we find ourselves in sheltering at home. You know, it got me also thinking about, how has my life impacted, or have I impacted my family the way Anna Jarvis had truly intended? So it took me right to this box right here. I have several of these at home actually. I've kept all the cards and letters from my children, my family members, just to remember their sentiments and to reread some of their words. So let me share with you what I believe Anna meant Mother's Day to be. And maybe this sheltering at home in 2020 isn't such a bad thing, because now we can start some new traditions. Well, Mother's Day started with my children, before they could ever buy anything or buy a card, making cards and sending me notes. So you might have some of these sitting around the house too, but I love going through these little scribbles, because I know those little hands and their hearts were in everything that they made. So there's that way. You could possibly do that today as well. It took me to some of my albums as a mom, going through. I have pictures, just tons of pictures of both of my children and grandchildren, and it reminds me of being a mom with them in different stages of their life. I have pictures of Sonia in her senior year. We went on a family cruise together, and we've been to New York, and here's her graduating from high school. And so it takes you into all the years and the actions and the love and the time shared together. So you might want to pull out maybe some albums. But it also took me to many of the cards and letters that I have saved throughout the years. And I want to share just a few of them with you before we end our time together. And first of all, it's generational. It goes from your children to their children to their children to their children, and that is the biggest dream any mom could have. So I have something from my grandson, Austin. I have a card that was so cute because it was the first card that my son Peter and his wife Melissa sent me for a holiday, and it has a little scribble here from Peter the Fourth. And so they've already started them thinking beyond themselves into mommy and daddy and grandma and grandpa. So that's a big influence you can have on your family. It took me to remember that motherhood comes in all shapes and sizes. You might be a woman who doesn't have children, but you might have been an impact in another woman's life. Could be a teen, could be an older woman, could be a colleague, but somewhere along the way, maybe you've been in that role as a mother or a confidant for that person. Or maybe you don't have children, but you have a mom. Maybe your mom has left this earth and gone to heaven, and you have found somebody else to be in that role with, to share life with as well. And some of these cards and notes reminded me of that. Motherhood comes in all shapes and sizes. And these are notes from some young girls, teen girls that I mentored in one of our ministries. They're just thanking me for time spent with them. Thank you, Mrs. Tokar. And they go on to share some personal thoughts of time that we spent together. And each one of these notes represents a young girl's life that I wasn't their maternal mother, but I had a role in their life as a mom and to coach them in some life issues. Here's a card that was actually mailed to me, and it says, to my second family, and it goes on to say some things. We were an extension of her literal family by spending time, meaningful time with her, listening, sharing, coaching, mentoring, and that relationship went beyond us physically being there with her. She actually mailed us quite a few cards, actually. Her name was Alyssa. Here's a card, it says, Dear Mrs. Tokar, and it's from my daughter-in-law, Melissa. It's before she was ever an official part of our family. You see, when you take time, I didn't know that she was going to marry Peter, but I wanted to take meaningful time with her. Whether or not they were meant to be together was yet to be decided, but I knew that if we crossed paths and God put her in my life, I had a responsibility to reach out to her and to meet some of her needs, and that took place just by that card and letter. And then here's another. Now she's calling me Mrs. T, dear Mrs. T. So she's gone from Mrs. Tokar, Mrs. T, and now she calls me Mom. So there's all kinds of things. We started a tradition in our family where we do buy cards for each other, and it says something meaningful to us and what we want to say to that person. But we have started a tradition that we write our own words on the inside. And this is one from my daughter Sonia. And as you can see, even though the card was meaningful, this is really where the heart is. And this is the stuff I read over and over and over again. One of my favorites. Not fancy. It's not a store-bought card. It's right from the heart. And this is from my daughter Sonia too. She actually made this for me her first year of college. And this hung on my refrigerator for years because I just love the simplicity of it. I love you, Mommy. It's my college girl. And it says, your daughter Son. We used to call her Son, Sonia for short. Well, these cards and letters are just filled with thoughts and meaningful words from each of our children. One from Peter. This is one from Peter, but I love this one's from Darren, my son-in-law, where he had just some special words all on his own. It wasn't from Sonia, it was just straight from Darren. And he wrote it in some very special, meaningful words there as well. One of my favorite cards that I'm going to end with is, I keep it right here in my Bible. This is my Bible. Every day I'm in this. I take out this card and I read it. And it's not just that it's from one child over another. It's what it says and what it represents to me as a mom. It reminds me the impact that each and every one of us can have on someone else, whether it's our child or someone else's mom, whoever God has put in our path. And I want to read this to you and end with just this one thought. The card says, just think. You're not alone. You're not here by chance. You're not alone, but by God's choosing. His hand formed you and made you the person you are. He handpicked you to be the mother your family needs. Hear that, ladies. The mother your family needs. You lack nothing that His grace can't give you. You are one of a kind. He compares you to no one. Through you, He is fulfilling His special purpose for this generation and for generations to come. Now, not only is that an incredible message to me from my daughter in this card, she also had some very special words to say right from her heart. Here, she said, I thank God for giving me you. You may never know your full impact on our family, but especially me. I love spending time together. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be a great mom. And isn't that where the rubber meets the road? We want to make an impact on our children that it's going to last a lifetime and take them into the roles that are yet to be fulfilled in their lives. And then I keep this picture inside here because it reminds me of time well spent and invested in my baby girl. And I have things like this for Peter as well, and for each of my grandchildren, special things that they have gifted me from their hearts. Abraham Lincoln had this to say. He said, no man is poor who has a godly mother. Ladies, these words are for you. This Mother's Day in 2020 can be the most meaningful, be very different, the way we're spending our time, but it can be the most meaningful Mother's Day you've ever had by capturing this time that we are sheltering together and making it the most impactful time in your family. Whether you do that electronically or face to face, it can be your best Mother's Day yet. I look forward to seeing you again soon in person, but in the meantime, happy Mother's Day. Make it the best one yet.